Thank you. All right. Good evening. I'll call to meeting the Planning Commission meeting of Wednesday, August 7th, 2024 at 6:35 p.m. And we will start with a roll call vote, please.
Sabakatani? Here. Mashali?
Here.
Newman?
Present. Here.
Azar? Here. Chair Foster?
Here?
Showalter?
Here.
Brazen?
Here. All right. We did receive word from Councilman Polika and Commissioner Hackforth that they would not be able to make it this evening.
Motion to excuse.
Second.
There's a motion by,
Reason.
thank you, Brazen, and a second by Showalter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, we move to approval of agenda. And this evening, we have a public hearing for the rezoning, conditional rezoning rather, and site plan application of 918 St. Louis Street. Do you have any edits to the agenda?
Motion to, approve the agenda as written.
Second.
Motion by Brazen, second by Showalter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have approval of minutes, consideration of approval of May 1st, 2024, and June 5th, 2024 meeting minutes.
Motion. Any discussion? Motion to approve minutes?
Second.
That is a motion by Showalter, second by Brazen. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, next on our agenda, we have a call to audience. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak on anything other than the public hearing, which we will have an opportunity for folks to speak on that, now would be the time to come. So if you have something other than the public hearing, that will open just a second. Just making sure. All right, so now we can move to, so we have a public hearing this evening for consideration of the conditional rezoning agreement and site plan review application at 918 St. Louis Street. And so we will start with a public hearing to hear from anyone in the audience that would like to speak on the issue. Do we start with the public hearing? No.
I think we start with presentation.
Sorry, we will not. Okay. Apologies. I just got off a long flight. This evening might be a little rough, to be honest. So we will actually start with an introduction from our staff and then a summary from our applicant. Then we will open up for a public hearing and then move to the commission for any discussion and questions for the applicant. So with that, we have Christine Ross, our planner.
Okay. Good evening, Planning Commission. So I am here to talk about 918 St. Louis. Tonight we're going to be discussing a conditional rezoning recommendation of approval and site plan approval. Police Capital is requesting to conditionally rezone 918 St. Louis from R1 single-family residential to MXD1 mixed use. The applicants are seeking conditional rezoning approval in order to construct a 2-story, 8-unit multifamily apartment building. Currently, the site exists as a long-time vacant single-family house with a detached garage. So a conditional rezoning occurs when the applicant seeks to rezone a parcel, but with certain limitations. So in this case, the limitations would be that the only thing that would be allowed to be constructed would be a 2-story, 8-unit building, and if that building does not get constructed within 2 years, the zoning would revert back to R1. So the applicant is requesting MXD1 due to the proximity of other MXD parcels. So this is our parcel right here highlighted in blue. The white signifies R1, single family residential, and the purple is MXD1 mixed use. So as you can see, it directly abuts it. So we thought that would be a good choice since it conforms with the existing area. So as mentioned, there are two approval processes here. The first one is site plan approval, and then the second is conditional rezoning approval. So if the conditional rezoning request is recommended for approval tonight, it will go on to City Council for consideration, and then they have the final say on this. So the applicant came before the Planning Commission at the February 21st meeting as a discussion item only, and then they came back at the June 5th Planning Commission meeting with the intent to build a 3-story 12-unit apartment building, but due to some parking and massing concerns, the applicant voluntarily decided to reduce the building from 3 stories to 2 stories, and from 12 units down to 8 units. The applicant has also decided to change some of the colors of the building too, to make it fit in with the neighborhood a little bit better. So we have a blue and white concept here now, whereas previously it was black and green and white. The ordinance requires 1.5 spaces for every ground unit, and 1 space for every 10 units for guests, and 1 space for every upper level residential unit. So with 8 units, the ordinance requires 11 parking spaces, and the applicant is providing 11 parking spaces, so they meet the intent of the ordinance. There will be 1 ADA space, 2 EV charging spaces. One of them will be ADA accessible, and then there are 16 bike parking spaces. So let's see. The applicant also came before the City Council at the July 8 meeting seeking rezoning approval, and the City Council decided to table that and have Planning Commission look over this again. So here we are. So I will introduce Aaron to go over the project a little bit more.
Thank you, Christine. Thanks. Good evening.
Good evening. Hi, I'm sure you guys are all sick of seeing me, but I'm just going to, first of all, thank you for all coming tonight. Good evening, members of the Planning Commission, residents of Ferndale, and esteemed guests. My name is Aaron Palushai, and I'm here to discuss the proposed rezoning of 918 St. Louis to the 2-story, 8-unit apartment building. First, I want to acknowledge and respect the concerns raised by residents of St. Louis Street. Change can be challenging, and it is natural to have questions and reservations about new developments in our community. While I do not reside in Ferndale, as builders, we feel and have felt a deep connection to the city, and we have taken significant steps to address these concerns. Regarding parking and traffic, we have designed our development with ample parking to accommodate the needs of our residents. With only 8 units, many of which we anticipate will be occupied by single individuals, we believe that the impact on traffic will be minimal. Additionally, our parking plan ensures that there will not be overflow onto the street, alleviating concerns about congestion and accessibility. Our development will feature electric charging stations, extensive bike parking, and will be fully electric. These elements align with the city's vision for a sustainable and environmentally friendly community. We have also planned for a retention system that will not burden the existing infrastructure. This system is designed to manage stormwater effectively, ensuring that it does not negatively impact our neighbors or the surrounding area. Understanding the importance of community feedback, we have made changes to our plans based on inputs from the residents. Specifically, we have altered the exterior design of the building to feature a blue and white color scheme with touches of teak wood. Furthermore, we have replaced the initially proposed black fence with a white one to better align with the aesthetic preferences of the neighborhood. It's important to recognize that the heart of Ferndale is its diverse and dynamic community. This small 8-unit development will not only provide new homes for potential best friends, partners, or colleagues, but will also contribute to the local tax base, helping to maintain and enrich the vibrant community we all cherish. We understand concerns about rezoning creep. The parcel directly to the west on St. Louis is zoned R1 and has 5 times the number of apartment homes than we are proposing. Moreover, more than 50% of the east side of St. Louis Street between Fielding and West Marshall is a park that will never be developed. Our proximity to West Marshall and the undeveloped east side of St. Louis makes this a perfectly situated property that is currently dilapidated and can be transformed into something the community can be proud of. Our country is facing a significant housing crisis. We need something to the tune of 4.3 million homes between now and 2035, just to keep pace with the population and changes in household formation. This project, while a small step, is a necessary one in addressing the large issue of housing availability. It's crucial to recognize housing as a basic human need, like food and health care. Investments in housing have profound impacts on people's lives, providing them with stability and better access to other essential services. Yet, 3/4 of people who need housing assistance don't receive it, highlighting the importance of projects like this in bridging that gap. Lastly, I want to address the perception of self-interest in housing development. Private capital is essential for building housing, especially when government intervention is limited. By investing in this project, we are taking substantial risks for a modest return. This is not about maximizing profits. It's about contributing to a solution for a broader societal issue. Our commitment to this project reflects our dedication to supporting the community and addressing the housing needs that are so critical at this time. In conclusion, I urge you to consider the benefits of this development. It aligns with the values of Ferndale, respects the concerns of the residents, and contributes positively to the community. We are committed to making this project a success and ensuring that it enhances the quality of life for all residents. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. All right, and with that, we'll move to the public hearing portion of this agenda item. And as Christine said earlier, we are an approving body of the conditional rezoning. And so the commission this evening can make a recommendation, and that will move to City Council where they would make a final determination, and we'll have another public hearing and notice at that time. And so with that, I will open the public hearing for the consideration of a conditional rezoning agreement application at 918 St. Louis Street at 647. Thanks for your patience.
Hello again, everyone. I'm Dominic Scapitici, and I'm one of the diverse and dynamic residents of not just Ferndale, but this neighborhood where the project is. I'm your average middle-aged married gay man. I'm a child of an immigrant to this country and was raised with a big love for our country and this government process here. I also was raised with an understanding of private property in our neighborhoods and developers. My family also comes from a developing background with projects like apartment buildings and single-family homes. My husband and I, we bought our home maybe about 12 years ago as our forever home. This is where we're going to, hopefully, knock on wood, age in place. We chose this neighborhood specifically because it's zoned single family. We anticipated living and retiring and hopefully dying in this single family zoned property and neighborhood. I just want to put that as a little background. My property, I'm at 840 La Prairie, forgot to say that, but my property is one street over from this, but from my backyard, the way our backyards are on that street, the two streets, they're staggered. So the view directly from my backyard is this development. You know, there's a single family house there, and I'll say this has probably little that you'll consider, but in the very early morning, it's where I get that first bit of sunshine that I would like to say is very important for our mental health, especially if you look around our world today, we don't have enough nature, we don't have enough access to the sunshine. I want to point out a couple things. I would love owner-occupied. I understand there's this push for apartments, but owner occupied. I want to see people being able to buy and have equity for generations. I do understand from a family business, this is probably your sort of owner equity and passing on, but I would like to see that available in Ferndale. We've been building large apartment buildings along the 9 Mile corridor. We should continue maybe to do that. The existing buildings, including the existing apartment buildings, which I do live right next to one, they're set back from the street farther than this development. If you go around that area, and I wish you would, all the houses and apartment buildings, except this proposed one, are set back. There is basically a front lawn. And I know that lawns are probably, not necessarily do bigger, but it could be something else. But what my point is that I would like to see something that matches, that's pushed back a little bit, to keep that same continuity along the street. Another thing I want to point out is when I was reading the proposal, I love to see that there's native trees included. I'm a proud member of Ferndale Garden Club here. And the trees that are listed on there are redbud, one of my favorite trees. I have 6 in my yard, and the red cedar. They're great trees. They are not canopy trees. And it's important that when we're building with our coming climate crisis, and I know everyone else has brought this up, but I was slow to admit climate stuff, but it's real now. We need canopy trees. Right now on there, when you look at the little tree inventory, it's a lot of tree of heaven and things I'd be happy to see go. There's a beautiful sycamore, which is a native tree, that will be gone. But there's nowhere on this site where there's going to provide canopy shade. These are trees that only grow maybe 20 feet at the most. Also, redbuds are very short-lived trees. They're not a succession species, so they're not something that lives a long time. In nature, it's meant to seed, grow real quick, live like 15 years and die. That should be considered, but we do need that shade of canopy trees. And you can check with MSU. All these things I'm taking are actually from MSU. Said owner occupied. I want to address a big one, which is drainage. The pond. There's a previous development that the developer did on Marshall. I don't know if I can submit things to you, but I'll submit this through whoever. These are, if you read See, Click, Fix, our community's way to report things. There's two tickets in there about this pond. I emailed the city. I emailed the planning department.
Thank you. If you could keep your comments,
I'm almost done.
Okay.
I asked, what are the rules on a retention pond? Because when you go behind the property, there's no fence, and there's a pond full of stagnant water. You should read these, and it is stagnant water. I called someone, the only person that responded was I got kind of a brief email from a city person.
I understand this is related to the development, but I'd like you to keep the comments that are relevant. And
This is relevant.
we are aware of the situation.
Okay,
So thank you.
well, this is where I'm getting to that. When I finally heard from a planning commission member that's not here, I was informed it's supposed to be a rain garden. So I would love to submit to also with you, here's something from the state of Michigan about what a rain garden is and is not. I would like the city to read this. My point on this is that we're ready to put in this big retaining underground cistern system. How the heck are our code inspectors, our city government, are they going to know how to license this, know how it's supposed to be maintained, know how it's supposed to be built? My point is that they didn't with the pond that's behind 345 Marshall. I mean, that's a clear sign that we need to pause on these type of developments for a moment as a city. I'm not confident, and I think this all shows it, that the city isn't also in a point to start adding this kind of infrastructure yet. I believe in the future we could, but I don't like living next to a big stinky pond that a toddler is going to fall into. I also want to submit something from See, Click, Fix 2 about flooding. This one is about a person on Almont Street, shout out to you, but they had a new development next to their property, and now the property is constantly in danger or dealing with flooding. You know, these are resident issues that I understand you come up here and you say, oh, I changed the color of the building, I made it only 8 units, and that's great, but it really isn't addressing, I guess, these large issues. They're cosmetic issues. They're not future planning issues. And I'm going to end it with this. Something happened, you know, I moved into Ferndale 12 years ago. I'm about 3/4 of an acre. And when I first moved in, my property was just, you know, it was scraped bare, it's just grass and like one tree. There was no insect life, there was no wildlife. But now, when I go outside, especially in the summer, it's just wall-to-wall lightning bugs. It's crickets. It's the sound of night birds. And it's the most wonderful thing, and it's the most wonderful thing not just for me, but I want it to be a legacy for the next generation of Ferndale residents. When we choose to develop our properties to the maximum extent of the property line like that, it's an old way of thinking about what is good for the environment. It is an old way of thinking that an urban area must be wall-to-wall building. We need to reevaluate and come up to date with our way of developing and planning, and that is including spaces in these urban areas so people can have access to lightning bugs. You know, they're becoming endangered in some states. So people can hear crickets, so people can have night birds, you know, sing at night to them.
Dominic, thank you so much for your
Thank you.
comments. Welcome.
Thanks. I'm Jenna Parks. I'm from 811 St. Louis Street, and I am in the 300-foot zone. So I received notification of this. I'm here again to oppose the proposal for rezoning, and I appreciate your previous vote to recommend against rezoning, and I'm here to encourage you to vote the same way again tonight. I brought with me today a petition that I brought around. I realize it's not legal, it's not anything, but I do represent 58 residents on our street who also oppose this rezoning. I would like to note that every person who opened the door to me was eager to sign this. It would have been much longer had people not been afraid that I was selling solar. I've talked to so many people over the past few months about this, and no one is excited about the idea of a developer building something other than a single-family or duplex home on our street. In that vein, something that's been brought up quite a few times that I feel is misleading, possibly intentionally, is the mention of the 2 adjacent mixed-use properties referenced as rationale to rezone. They are single-family homes. They're not businesses, they're not apartment complexes. They are 2 single-family homes that happen to be zoned mixed-use. They are not, they do not, the site plan does not conform to these homes. I think that that's unfair to say. Marshall is mixed use, but St. Louis is single-family and duplex homes. The developers also referenced that this building mentioned that it's small. 8 units is not small when placed on a single-family lot. If you take a look at the previous project on Marshall, you'll see exactly how out of place this can feel when it goes wall to wall and fence to fence, and I think that the neighbors on the one side and their brand new privacy fence would probably agree. I encourage you all, as you work on this commission, to be curious about the applications that come across your desk. Walk the streets your decisions will impact. Understand what kinds of buildings they're talking about when they call them mixed use, when they call them, describe the neighborhood. Get a feel for it. Have conversations with the people who live there outside of these meetings. This is not fun. This feels like an interview. This feels like I'm getting the anxiety of presenting a thesis. This is not human, and we don't have an opportunity to rebut or discuss. I sat down with the mayor. I've talked to Donnie Johnson. Those are outside conversations that we've really come to more of an understanding of what's going on. So get their input before you make decisions. It means a lot to us. We live here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Welcome.
Hello. Brian Engel. I'm from 430 St. Louis, and I've been a resident for 18 years, and frankly, I oppose any illegal rezoning of St. Louis to partial mixed use, as it does not empty onto an arterial street, which is part of the definition of a mixed use. Arterial streets must have lines painted on them, and St. Louis doesn't have the width for proper lines due to the street parking. St. Louis has parking on only one side due to the requirements from the fire department. I also support the master plan, which states the need for affordable, rehabilitated existing housing. If the house is deemed unfit for rehabilitation, then a single-family home should replace it because it's still R1. This will keep the integrity of the street as a neighborhood of homes and home buyers and not as transient renters. It allows someone to build wealth and equity while still paying taxes, and the next time the house is bought and sold, those taxes will increase. Single-family home won't overburden the sewer system that gets overwhelmed as it did in recent storm in July. The street was flooded over 100 feet long at one point. This causes backups in basements without one-way flow valve, as mine actually does. In closing, the changing of the zoning to mixed use is a betrayal to those that own the homes in St. Louis. Any apartments located directly on the street detracts from the quality of life and value of the neighborhood homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. All right, well, I don't see anyone else. Do we have any comments or emails or phone calls?
Yes, we did receive one email this morning from Rachel Engel, so I'm going to go ahead and read that. To whom it may concern, there is only one recommendation for the developer that is legal, aligned with the master plan of Ferndale, and does not cause harm to the residents of St. Louis. 918 St. Louis remains R1 with a rehabilitated, affordable, and accessible home on it. While there are many reasons the opportunistic developer's plan does not align with the master plan of Ferndale, there are three main reasons clearly stated in the master plan of Ferndale. Number one, protect the existing naturally occurring affordable housing stock. Number two, increase green space as the climate crisis will increase rainfall by 25%. Number three, strengthen neighborhoods by encouraging the rehabilitation of existing housing stock. To oversell this, push a recommendation for anything other than an R1 zoning would be a failure of the Planning Commission to function as a reliable source for advice on the master plan and zoning ordinances. As a matter of law, the rezoning for a profiteer is illegal as the project does not conform to the zoning ordinance for mixed use. Clearly states in Municipal Code Ordinance number 1087 5.03a, development in mixed districts shall front on a major arterial street, excluding Pinecrest, or on Marshall, Woodward Heights, or Vester. Lastly, over 45 households have signed a petition to stop the rezoning of our quiet, residential safe street. That alone should be enough, as the master plan acknowledges the residents of Ferndale are the center point of the city. No means no. Vote no to rezone to protect the residents of St. Louis, to protect the integrity of the Planning Commission, and to protect the city from a well-deserved class action lawsuit should it engage in illegal and damaging development. So that, again, is from Rachel Engel.
That was the only email or phone call we received this time. Thank you. Councilwoman, the planning, we have or for anyone in the audience that's joined us, our public hearing is open if you'd like to speak. Seeing that no one else is approaching, we will close the public hearing at 7:03. All right. I appreciate the comment that was made about how it is an interesting process getting feedback, and it's always a bit difficult for us. I know that it is difficult to not be able to have a lot of back and forth on these. However, that's the way that we operate business and how it is. So I also get that it is very awkward and not the best, but we do always appreciate when people come to us and provide their comments and want to get involved. And unfortunately, sometimes it's specific developments that really are the most engaging because it's something you can see and feel and have a reaction to versus, getting involved in the master plan. And I'm not saying that any of you wouldn't have done that. Oftentimes we have to get involved in all of those processes. And the master plan was referenced a couple times, and that is certainly one of the biggest resources for us to get feedback on what we want the development in Ferndale to look like, and what we use as our guide for reference, particularly within rezoning application reviews. I would note that, the master plan does say quite a few things, and one of them being housing, and that we need additional housing in the city of Ferndale, in addition to some of the other comments that were made already. And then there were just a couple other comments that I wanted to address. Actually, so before that, we recently, did that go out to about zoning ordinance already? Is it is that out to the public yet? Of the zoning ordinance? Okay, so soon to be, there'll be announcements about our zoning ordinance that has been in the process. There's been a public process, that there were some public meetings and a website to engage in our process, which for the zoning ordinance, which typically we don't engage a lot in public feedback for that, besides, the typical planning or public hearings at the end of the process. But we've really made a concerted effort to get as much feedback on that as possible. And so just letting you know that that will be coming to the public soon as an announcement of our draft zoning ordinance, which will be a reflection of our new master plan, or new-ish master plan that was approved 2022. And so off the heels of that process, wanting to update our zoning ordinance, and actually to a lot of comments that were made this evening about environmental concerns, and really updating our zoning ordinance to reflect the needs of proper drainage, and allowing different types of methods for some of the environmental concerns that were spoken of, but also being a reflection of the master plan, our needs for the communities, and our goals. And so I encourage you to all keep an eye out for that, and continue to be engaged in that process. All right, now moving on to comments. There was one that referencing the neighboring mixed uses for a reason why this was fitting, and I'm not sure if it was a misunderstanding or misguided reference, but I think really the context was the apartment buildings across the street and just behind West Marshall and along West Marshall, and so the 2 blocks west, not necessarily the mixed use buildings just to the north of it. So I'm going to make that comment or reflection on that comment that it sounded, I wanted to clarify that, in our conversations that we've had, we've talked about the apartment buildings, not necessarily those other buildings, the smaller units in the mixed use. And then also to the comment about being illegal, this process of the rezoning has all been done legally to the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act per our state and local codes. And so the rezoning itself is a process, whereas we hold a public hearing tonight off the application, we would make a recommendation, go to city council. And through that process, that rezoning would allow for the zone to change and for development to be developed under the confines of that new zoning ordinance. So I don't believe illegal should be used in any context about the process that we're doing here, as we are all doing it per the state and local codes. To my understanding, I'd be happy to discuss that more if there's further concern about that. And so there's a few things also that were stated that we can maybe open up to the commission. We did have quite a long discussion about this project at our last meeting that we held. A lot of comments there, and I apologize for anyone in the audience who might not have been there, that we might not repeat those conversations, just out of respect for our volunteers' times. And to that point, we are volunteers that work on this commission as members of the community. I personally live in this neighborhood, even if there is a project outside of my neighborhood, I always make a point to understand the context of that development, visit the site, identify what is going on in that community. This one happens to be in my neighborhood, just a few streets over from where I live, and have lived for 8 years or so. And I believe that there's at least one other in the same neighborhood, and I know that all of us make a real point to do a good job about coming with our own experience, not only professionally, but from within the community, and with our relationships to, those that we live next to, and continue to be a part of our community and our neighborhood. So, I think also to the point of the infrastructure, I think we did discuss this at our last meeting as well, because we had the concerns identified, and specifically Councilman Polika brought up that 4-unit or whatnot on West Marshall, and the issue with the rain garden. This site would not, please correct me if I'm wrong, this would have a detention or retention system that would be similar to many that we have developed over the past few years. Our engineers review them very closely, and are experienced with not only reviewing these site plans, but inspecting and making sure that they are completed properly. And so I don't think we should be concerned about this type of development, as we have been developing apartments, and our engineers are well experienced in this type of retention or detention system. I always get those wrong.
Through the chair, the underground detention system is a pretty standard civil engineering system that is used in a lot of parking lots, and used in a lot of sites that have small areas, and it's used when there is not availability to do a retention or detention pond. The underground systems are pretty standard, and you're not going to have issues with insects or anything like that. It's all concealed underground.
Okay, this is a total aside, but I just got back from Ireland, literally 30 minutes ago. And it was so cool, because I learned that all of those single-family houses have underground detention, which I found very fascinating, and I wanted to learn more about, but sorry, I just had to bring that up. So yes, very standard within our city, not just in Ireland. Thank you. Any further comments on the infrastructure, just since we got into it, or
Through the chair, I'd probably make a comment about sight lines from La Prairie, with it only being a 2-story building with a roof. I think that's pretty standard as far as sight line. Get much sunlight blocked except for very early in the morning, which is going to be the same as looking through your backyard at any other 2-story house.
Yeah. And I understand the comment too about this placement of the building up to the road, which is different than the neighborhood in the neighborhood context, minus all along West Marshall. But actually, if we had pushed that building back, it would actually protrude, or like, get into the airspace more so on the rear side of the side and for any buildings behind it. So having it pulled up to the front is actually better for light and air in the backyard.
Through the chair, there is a cemetery behind this parcel, as opposed to a structure.
But also to the point of building out sites, this is something we discuss a lot as well, is the amount of impervious surface, and something that our ordinance does provide for, that we have a certain amount of open space. And as we are updating our zoning ordinance, it's something that's been of great concern to us to do a better job of what that open space looks like, because sometimes we have found that developers will take little increments all around and call it their open space, because they'll, by percentage or square foot or whatnot, have the space, but it doesn't actually make for sound open space where you can either utilize it or, use, make an environmentally, adequate space. So that's something that we are looking at improving as we update our zoning ordinance. So I just wanted to comment on that point as well.
And through the chair, a question for the applicant. Has the underground or will the underground detainer system be designed by a licensed civil engineer? And they are able to, and will they be able to design this per the county ordinance for stormwater retention? Okay.
That's a requirement, and he just said yes for, as it wasn't at the microphone, I'll repeat it for the recording. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. Are there any other comments, reflections from anything we've heard today, or questions for the developer?
And through the chair, I'm also, like, there were comments about, like, you really want to visit the site and be aware of the neighborhood. I live one street over from this as well. My backyard is the cemetery as well, so I know the site. I walk my dog past the site pretty much every few days when I go on a walk. I'm aware of the site. I'm aware of the existing site that's there as well, and I don't believe that site has. I'm not sure, but I haven't seen any signs of occupancy on that site for many years now. Whenever I walk by that site, there's a sign posted on the door that said the water's been turned off. So I know the site, and it's an underutilized. Yeah, there's a white piece of paper on the door. Yeah, and so it's yeah. So I mean, I know the neighborhood as well. So, but it just says, I mean, we're all members of the community we're all members of the community on this body. We're not like we're trying to, like, we're not paid to do this. This is a volunteer effort on our part. So it's it's hard. Sometimes it's easy to take offense when people like imply that we're somehow not looking out for our own neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. I would just add to that, that we are members of the community, but we also do our best job to represent the whole community. And projects like this, it's very difficult to ignore, especially the people in the room, and the many voices that have specific opinions, but there are also other voices throughout the community that we have to respect and just understand that, for instance, being in a housing crisis and knowing that we need units and that we need to address it as a community, and that also there's, we're going out for a head lead because we have issues with our tax base, and there's many other factors to consider looking at the community as a whole and our goals as a community. Are there any other,
I think my last personal anecdote is I've lived in Ferndale my whole life, so more than 30 years. And for some time, I was a transient renter on the next street over on La Prairie in one of these apartment buildings before we were able to buy our house over by Ferndale High School. So I think that kind of bounces back to that we're all here because we care about this community, and obviously I haven't left it, and that there are even 4 people that now live in single-family homes. I've lived in several in duplexes and apartment buildings in Ferndale before we were able to find our final house. So I think there's still a lot of use for mixed housing, even though the vast majority of the city is single-family residential.
I think it's a good point, too, that many of us go from renting to owning, and as important as it is to build equity, that it's not available to everyone, or not something that some people want at specific times of their life. And I rented in Ferndale for 8 years at least until I was able to buy a home in the community. And so that we need to provide options for everyone, and different types of options. Sorry, I keep talking on everyone's points. Thank you for bringing them up.
Through the chair, I have a question, but I don't know if it's, I think it has to do with this, but it's to Roger and Christine. How long has the house been vacant, actually? Because it's been on the market, so it was actively looking for someone to own it, but I know it's been a couple of years. I've seen it vacant too. Could you give us a timeline?
Yeah, I'm not exactly quite sure. I could look into our building records and see if we had any, sort of indication, but I think at the last meeting, I think Cody said about 4 or 5 years, maybe. But I can look into that and try to get a more narrowed down time frame.
Thank you. And as far as I've seen with the house, seeing it over the years, I've seen a sign out there, so I know, again, that they were actively looking for someone who wanted to live in that property in a single-family house. Or, we see in other communities tear downs and rebuilds, but that was not, seems like it wasn't ever acted on to keep it or improve it that way.
The whole, looking at just, it was vacated sometime between May 2019 and October 2021 per Google Street View.
Increase the taxes, support that. It's only going up about 4% a year, and then it shut up.
Through the chair, Christine, could you pull the site plan back up?
You want me to zoom in on any particular part of it, or?
Through the chair, I have a general question. In the prior meeting we had, I believe it was the caretaker from the cemetery who mentioned that there was a driveway, I thought, on the
east side.
It's there.
South.
right, so that's the proposed building still is adjacent to that driveway?
Are you talking about the caretaker's house or this house?
There's a,
Yeah, go ahead.
so there's this property, then there's a driveway that goes back into the cemetery, and then there's the caretaker's house. It was shown on there. It was on the site plan.
Yeah, the caretaker had mentioned that there's a lot of early morning noise I believe down his driveway, right? I'm trying to remember from the prior meeting.
Yeah, I think there's the two cemeteries that are adjacent to each other. You were saying it's the one that's more north that has that drive that
Okay.
hooks
Thank you. I just
back
wanted
around to the east, that they have
Thank you for refreshing my memory.
preparation things in the mornings.
That's the driveway to the caretaker's house, and then that's driveway to the caretaker's house, that's the driveway to the cemetery. He was saying that there was plenty of traffic up and down there when they're doing the service.
So it's the proposed structure is still adjacent to that driveway, right?
Correct, yeah, and then they are planning on using the same driveway approach currently, so it would be on the north of the property, closer to Marshall.
Thanks.
Yeah, through the chair, it looks to be approximately 8 to 10 feet away from the property line of our property in question.
I did have a question on the facade by the patios for the developer. It looks like there's grates, those black grates. Can you speak to those, please?
Yeah, that's a vertical pack heating and cooling, all-electric heating and cooling unit. So that's where we won't have any like condensing units outside. It'll all just be like a vertical pack there.
Okay. Since I'm not familiar with them, can you tell me a little bit about how they operate and what they, just since they're right next to the patios, I was a little bit concerned about the placement there. Like, is it noisy or?
Yeah, they're super efficient and they're not noisy. You're not allowed to have, I believe it's like, you need clearance on like 4 inches on each side, so the placement is fine. That will be, like I said, an all-electric unit that will be heating and cooling, and then the duct work will be ran from that unit into each individual unit.
Okay. Yep, the placement concern was, I like that we have the patios and decks or whatnot on the front, because I think something that we talk about often is very important within our communities, that we have front porches and ability to, see our neighbors and have that engagement along the street. So my concern was if those were going to be a nuisance, being right on the patio, that it would prevent kind of people from like hanging out there. So I just wasn't sure about what those were like.
Yeah, no, it shouldn't at all. They're not noisy. It's very common in this type of construction for like a garden style. Typically, they're 3 stories, but yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Well, if there are no further questions for the applicant, I would welcome.
I do have a question.
Okay.
Where are the utilities going in? Are they on the south side? Yes.
Oh, sorry, please answer to the microphone.
Yeah, where are the utilities going in? Is
Yep,
it
sorry,
on the
Brian,
south side?
I was actually asking the developer to come up so we can hear him on the microphone. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, there will be no natural gas, so that's one utility that there won't be. Yeah, the electrical panels will be on the south side of the building.
Also,
Any way to move those to like,
to the back.
when we're walking up there, we don't have to look at them?
I don't,
Because there's a driveway right next door to it, so they're just gonna be exposed, and then nobody can put up a fence to cover them up like they did on Marshall's property.
yeah, I'm not sure if we could put it on the east side. There's all the windows and whatnot. It could go on either the north or south side, and you could put a buffer of like some, skinny evergreens or something, but I don't know if it could go up on the east side. I'd have to ask the architect and engineer. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, because then you can put a little tiny fence around.
Is there a landscape plan?
Yeah, just cover
Yep.
the landscape from the backside.
In the packet.
Because there's no room on the south side.
Thank you. And to that point, I think that, that is a good point, that perhaps we could just extend some of the evergreens along, so you have them all along the front and to the north side, but nothing wrapping kind of around to the south, which they would actually, I think, probably decent light there. And so maybe we could just wrap it around a little bit to shield some utilities. And then to the point about the canopy trees, there's a nice comment that we should also look at as we're updating the zoning ordinance, as we look at that section, just make sure that we are encouraging canopy trees, because I know that we have specific lists for that type of thing. And so I don't know if you're also looking at any other trees as you're developing this landscape plan, or if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the landscape plan, we want it to look nice, but we're completely open to like canopy trees. I didn't really think about it. It's a good suggestion. I don't know if that helps with the shade issue that you're worried about, but yeah, we're open to, you know, we wanted to meet the ordinance and what it called for, but we're open to different types of trees and whatnot.
Thank you. I would welcome a motion if there's no further questions.
Through the chair, clarification on, we talked about the conditional rezoning agreement, but are we having a secondary discussion about the site plan review application, or is that all one?
There would be two motions, one for the conditional rezoning, one for the site plan. So we are the final authority on the site plan, whereas the planning commission, or sorry, city council rather, is the final authority on the conditional rezoning. So only the conditional rezoning would move forward. And so since it does go forward, even if we were, whichever way we were to vote on the, my goodness, conditional rezoning, we could still discuss the site plan, being that we won't know how the conditional rezoning ends up with a final motion from the city council. We don't have to, but we could. I did thank you for mentioning that, because I did have a question on the conditional rezoning language. I think we may have meant to say, let me pull it up real quick. I think that the specific words we use might have been, are a little confusing potentially. And so it says that the developer agrees to restrict the use of the property to residential use as a 2-story, 8-unit apartment complex only. I think only we may not have needed the word only if we're restricting the use to a 2-story, 8-unit, which would be the maximum. I think the intent was that would be a maximum, and not that it could only specifically be 8 units. I would hate to confine the developer unintentionally to a specific number in case they wanted to redraw, unit lines or whatnot, or to do something a little bit different. So is that the intention of the developer?
Yeah, just the feasibility of the project, it was kind of tight at 12, it's super tight at 8, so we just put that language in there. Yeah, you make a good point. If we wanted to make one unit like 1,900 square feet or like do 6 and make 2 units really large, but we're okay with that language for the 8 units. I guess we wouldn't be able to build 6 though. Is that what you're thinking with that language? Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question.
Mm-hmm. So was it your intention then to say that the developer agrees to restrict the use of the property to residential use as a 2-story, 8-unit apartment complex?
Yeah, we essentially we wanted to make sure that there was language in there saying that we wouldn't build anything over 2 stories and over 8 units.
Thank you. That's the answer.
So I just wanted to add that our city attorney did review the conditional rezoning agreement, and he was fine with the language too, so.
Thank you. You have a question? There are the two sample or example motions in the packet, one for the conditional rezoning, another for the site plan. We do not have to do them in any specific order. Yeah, you can.
A lot of reading.
Well, typically, you can say, findings as stated, 1 through 6 in the packet. You can kind of, yeah.
To create a motion in the matter of 918 St. Louis sidewall number 24, 25, 31, 331, and 19, that the Planning Commission approve the site plan based on plans dated July 2nd, 2024, with the following findings subject to the following conditions, 1 through 3, and conditions 1 through 2 as listed in the packet.
Sorry, I did just want to make a comment. That was my error. The plans are supposed to be dated August 1st, so I apologize that I did not update that.
I'd like to amend my motion to say August
Can I get a
1st.
second first, please?
Support.
All right, so I have a motion by Showalter, support by Michelli, and a friendly amendment to change the dates of the plans for August 2nd, and that was a motion for the site plan recommended approval with the findings and conditions as in the packet. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Through the chair, did you say findings 1 through 3 or findings 1 through 6?
This is a site plan
Oh,
approval.
site plan, thank you.
Yep.
I'm on the wrong page. Okay, thank you.
So yes, 1 through 3.
Okay.
I did have just a comment that if we wanted to potentially add a condition about canopy trees and evergreens around the south, the developer will have their own ability to discuss with the staff to make these minor changes, so it's not necessary. They could still make those changes without us encouraging it, but that is potentially something we could add. And I would be in support.
So that would be adding a condition for a green screen for utility connections and inclusion of canopy trees in the landscaping plan?
Yes, thank you for clarifying.
Yes, through the chair, a little bit of discussion on that. There also is the easement in front of the property, which City of Ferndale has been planting trees as well. Like, is that an opportune space to include canopy trees?
Okay.
So there's the easement if you want to roll to the site plan. Their property only goes to the sidewalk, and then everything in front of the sidewalk is the city easement, which the city has been planting trees.
So they have them diagrammed on their site plan on the property versus on the outside of the site, the sidewalk?
Correct.
That's a good point. They probably have a bit more space to grow within the easement, and we would be more typically seen there. Also, potentially looks like you could have both. Excuse me.
I think perhaps we had a condition for the screening and acknowledge that the applicant has been receptive to city and resident feedback regarding working with the easement in addition to trees that they already have placed due to like space constraints for canopy trees in the current landscaping arrangement.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with that, with a condition that states that the developer will work with the city to utilize canopy trees instead of the short-lived trees as much as possible, and the short lifespan trees as much as possible, and to provide screening at the utility locations.
Michelle, do you agree with the change in the condition?
Yep, I agree.
All right, so we have a motion for the site plan with an added condition. Any further discussion on the motion?
Can we restate the condition just for the record, please? I think I know what it is, but I just want to hear it confirmed.
Let me try. So the applicant shall work with staff to relocate or substitute, let me say it again. The applicant shall work with staff to relocate or substitute trees to maximize visual blocking and shade.
Or utilities.
For,
I think that's conflating the two comments.
Yeah, I think we'll have to separate them as two, so,
We have the condition to work with city staff to look into to work with city staff to make sure that there is the right species of trees being planted and in the right locations, and then we have another one to incorporate screening for the utilities.
so the applicant shall work with staff to ensure the trees maximize shade, that's canopy trees, and then the applicant shall work with staff to ensure landscaping blocks utility or addresses utility boxes, visual blocking of utility boxes.
And I think the only clarification there is understanding the use of the potential city easement for canopy tree.
I have a separate one for that. The applicant shall work with staff to move the trees to the tree lawn or add trees to the tree lawn. So those might move to the tree lawn or add more to the tree lawn.
I think it would need to be add, right, because these trees probably conform, because there wasn't a finding for, like, the tree bank, or whatever we call it. Like they're meeting the landscaping requirements right now, so if they were to move the trees versus adding, it would cause us to have
they still
another.
count if they're in the easement.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
One thing I'm concerned about is I don't know what trees those are and how big they are, that if adding more of the tree lawn blocks both of them, then it's too much. But I think we understand what the intent, what you're looking for. More trees is better.
And I'm not an arborist, so I don't want to give direction. I want to encourage the applicant to seek out direction from people who are more qualified than I am.
Right, through the chair, I think an appropriate canopy tree, if it was put on the property as shown, then it would probably choke out the canopy tree based on the distance of the lawn that they have. So it's probably be a more appropriate drip line on the easement.
Moving to,
So if you give us the flexibility, we can work with the applicant, have their landscape architect come up with a plan, see what can work, and run it by the city arborist to see if that works,
right.
with the goal of adding canopy trees and more shade.
Tree shade and screening, yes. Comfortable with the addition of the condition 4 to specify those?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so now we have our motion with the 2 additional conditions. Any further discussion on the motion? All right, I'll have a roll call vote, please.
Subakatani,
Yes.
Mashali,
Yes.
Newman,
Yes.
Azar,
Yes.
Brazen,
Yes.
Showalter,
Yes.
Chair Foster.
Yes. Motion passes. For the site plan for 918 St. Louis.
So I'll say I raise a motion.
Yeah, you can.
I'd raise the motion in the matter of 918 St. Louis, Sidwell number 24 25 34 331 19. After a public hearing was held as published for this date and place, the Planning Commission recommends approval of the conditional rezoning application and agreement to the City Council based on the plans and conditional rezoning agreement dated August 7th, 2024, to conditionally rezone the parcel from R1 Single Family Zoning District to MXD1 Mixed Use District with the 6 findings included. and the two conditions.
Support.
There's a motion by Newman with support by Michele. I have a friendly suggested edit to discuss in condition 1 to remove the word only at the end of the sentence. So to be more, to clarify that it is a restriction of a maximum of 8 units, as discussed by the developer.
Support that change.
I would too. Just to,
Yeah, that's okay with us.
Thank you.
I think that,
About 8-unit complex max.
I wonder if we should,
So conditional rezonings are supposed to be brought by the applicant, so I don't want us to, get too deep in the weeds here.
That's why I clarified with the developer of what he had
Yeah.
requested to bring to us, and that's why I thought it was clarifying to remove the word only.
Yeah, I think we should just keep it at that and not rewrite it too much, so.
So just strike the word only.
Correct. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Roll call vote?
Raisin,
Yes.
Showalter,
yes.
Spakatani,
Yes.
Michele,
Yes.
Newman,
Yes.
Azar,
Yes.
Chair Foster.
Yes. Motion passes. Wow, the motion passes to recommend approval to the city council. And so the next step in the process for the conditional rezoning is that we will notice a public hearing for a city council. The date will be forthcoming of which city council meeting that will be at. So you have an idea already?
Our next 2 meetings in August are the 12th and the 26th, so we'll work with the developer and, to conform with everything.
I think the 12th would be too early. We will need a specific amount of time to notice the public hearing. And so it'd probably be at the second meeting in August at the very earliest.
I think in my conversation with the city attorney, the city council does not have to be a public hearing, only this one. I think they can come speak at the public portion of it, but I don't think it has to be.
For the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act, that's correct. We just typically have in the past, so I didn't know if it was a city ordinance or something. So I would appreciate if you would just verify that again with the
We
city.
probably will. I think it's probably what we've done historically, but I just want to alert people it may not be.
And I could be wrong, but it just seems like we have the past couple of them although we don't do them very often, so.
I think we have. Regardless, I think we know the citizens who spoke today, and we will get word to them if we do not do a public hearing, what date it'll be on, and they can come speak. So,
They'll be able to have the chance to speak regardless.
yeah, we'll alert them to what date that is.
Okay. All right, and so at that meeting, residents will have the opportunity to speak, and the city council will be making the final determination on the conditional rezoning.
Yes, and if we do have to publish the public hearing, that deadline was at noon today, so we wouldn't be able to get to the August 26th meeting. It would be sometime in September.
Okay, so if we don't technically, though, have to do that, then we wouldn't have the day's confinement, and it potentially could be at the next meeting.
It could be earliest at the 26th, I'd say.
But if we didn't have the confinement of
Correct.
then it could be at the next meeting, potentially.
I think the 12th is a little too soon, but yeah, we typically don't, because that agenda has to be posted tomorrow, so, yeah.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. All right, well, we thank everyone for coming. Again, we do appreciate feedback, and I know it can be disconcerting to speak an opinion and feel that it's not heard, but we do hear you and appreciate your feedback. Again, I encourage everyone to be alert for, one, the city council date for this item in particular, but also for the draft of the zoning ordinance that will be coming out fairly soon. I don't know the exact timing, so I hesitate to say soon, but it'll be forthcoming. And there will be opportunity to speak on that as well. So thank you to the applicant and to the residents on this matter. Next item on the agenda is administrative items. Do we have anything, Steve Roger, coming up?
So just want to talk about the code rewrite. I don't know if Tom or Michelle want to talk about the steering committee meetings or anything?
Sure.
Do you guys want to talk about it, or do you want me to?
If you want to set us up, give us the facts, and we can.
We're nearing the end of this long road. We've had many steering committee meetings, many community engagement meetings, many months of me, Christine, and Kyle reading the draft front to back, giving comments, getting them back, but we are nearing the end, and it's all about kind of zippering it all together. If you recall, we jumped ahead. So we had the last draft. We would have normally sort of went to the steering committee, but we actually jumped ahead with planning commission and created groups of 2, so you guys could be familiar with it when it comes up. So we assigned you each staff members. We appreciate the extra work you took in reviewing certain sections of it. So we've completely jumped ahead. We completed that, and then we jumped back to the steering committee meeting. We had 2 meetings on a Thursday and a Monday, probably totaling 4.5 hours or so, maybe a little bit more. I don't remember.
Significant discussion?
It was a while, but we hammered through stuff, and I think we got to where we needed to be. So with that, Kyle and McKenna are putting it in one last draft form that we will then be able to send out to the public. We're trying to figure out how to zipper some community engagement together. So there was talk about having another community meeting. I think what we've settled on was to do a workshop with City Council. That's the talk. I haven't confirmed that with the city manager, but I think we will likely, and I don't know this, do some kind of open house here for an hour or so, invite the council to hear from the public and planning commission to hear from the public, and then have a joint workshop where we will present this to everybody, and then you and council can have some feedback. We do have 2 new council members, so we have 40% new members. And it's not really fair to just throw them at a council meeting and say, hey, this cake is baked. So we kind of want to do the same thing we did with you guys, where we bring them forward a little bit, and then they can go away while you guys do your thing, and then we'll go back and approach them. So they have some familiarity. So we're going to do that. I think we talked about sending out random letters to property owners and residents like we had previously. I think because of this open house, we kind of said no to that. So I don't think we're going to do that. But I think we are going to send out letters to those whose zonings are changing what I'll call substantially. So R1 to 2 or 2 to 1, you're not going to get noticed. But if you're changing from commercial to residential, residential to commercial, we'll send you a direct letter that says your zoning may change. Reach out to us. So I have to confirm some last-minute community engagements. But as of now, it looks like we will send out letters to people that zoning is changing. We will have a joint workshop with City Council and invite the public and have the workshop, and then we will present to you in a formal meeting the code, and then we will take your recommendation to City Council for 2 meetings. So we're looking at, we might be broaching approval now in early November. It keeps pushing back because I think we've looked at least I've heard, a workshop date of September 18th, maybe, if that's a meeting for you guys. So if I do September 18th, then I come back to you, then I gotta go to 2 council meetings. So we're in that time frame. So, is that a date? Oh, yeah.
Good day.
So that's what we're thinking. There's still a little bit of talk going on with it, but we are near the end. We are just putting the pieces together. So you guys will get a version as soon as we have it, a final full version. You can start reading through it. You can start reaching out to us, give us some comments, but
The chair.
we're near the end.
So the section that Tom and I are working on, that we've had conversations with you, I end up having more questions now since our last conversation. There is no chance to look at the whole ordinance change as it relates to the section I'm working on until we convene again?
We can talk, me, you, and Tom. I'm happy to meet.
Okay.
But
The draft isn't currently ready because there are still edits being made to it.
yeah, we're still doing that, and then you know, if we start in a public meeting talking about yours, then someone else is going to start talking about their section, then it's going to start turning into this like
Sure,
big
no, I was
thing.
just trying to clarify, because I think there were questions, more questions that I had come up, and I didn't, if we don't have an opportunity to see the entire thing, that answers my question. Thank you.
Yeah, and part of creating groups was so again, you guys weren't surprised when we just threw it on your desk and said, all right, we need a motion. So it brought you forward. But it was to create experts in whatever section you were involved with. So when we go to the workshop or we go to the meeting and you have questions about the use chart, you know, Krista, what did you think about the use chart? And she can say, Dustin and I looked at it. We have these same questions. It's to hopefully make experts out of your little section to save some time. But you guys individually aren't focused on just your section. Just know that. Right now you are. But when it comes to the whole thing, read it from front to back. If you want to jump in different sections.
And I believe that we will all vote on to, and I believe I've mentioned this to you before, but it will be nice to have a draft well in advance of any meeting that we have that we're going to talk about it. And so we will, as you're looking at the dates, make sure to think that we'll probably want it at least 3 weeks in advance would be helpful. I feel that way personally.
I was thinking on a Friday and just ask for all the comments on Monday. No, I think we were hoping to have Kyle and Laura get a final draft by next week, end of next week or early next week, which would take us to like August 17th, 18th or so, giving you a month till the September 18th meeting. So we know it'll be a lot to take in.
The September 18th, I'm certainly not, how do I put this the best way? Like, I'm not necessarily needed. I know I'm only one person on the commission, and that the body can operate without me, but I will not be at that meeting. And as a person on the steering committee and as a chair, I personally would prefer that we don't do it at that meeting. I did make sure that was the only week that I have to be out of town for that meeting, but I've made sure that every other planning commission meeting date I will be in town for, just for this zoning ordinance. So that is the one date that
One day we chose.
I cannot.
And that's fine. You want to be part of the workshop and the planning commission hearings, and you want to
Would
be part of
like
both.
to be, yeah.
I think you did send us a date. This came from a couple people and the city manager, so I will review your email and reach out, because we want to get as many people as we can. Is there anybody else who's not available?
I will also be absent. I'll be out speaking at a conference.
On the 18th? Are you available the week before and after?
I believe so.
Why don't we send out a doodle poll, and we will do our best to get everybody there, because it helps.
I think it's important for the chair of the Planning Commission to be involved in the meeting that we're approving the new zoning ordinance. I think that's something I'm not sure if I really want to be running that meeting.
Well, this would be the workshop.
Well, like when I had COVID and you got to sign the master plan and I had to run that meeting?
One of the things I'm worried about is approximately what percentage, ballpark, doesn't have to be super accurate, of the residents are going to be noticed that they're changing their zones? Are we talking about 10% of the residents?
You'd have to run the number. I don't think it's that many. I know Kyle said he started running a query. I don't know that it's that many. Like the P along the alley is going to residential, so you got some there. There's some MXD stuff to residential, I think.
When we did that, were you at the, I know, I've heard conversations about this when we did the P.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly which meeting it was, but there was one that we moved it to the high school auditorium to make sure there were plenty of seats. And people did, it affected them, they had an opinion. So if you're looking for a head count.
There was a significant amount of people that showed up?
And I don't want it to seem like we're just half-hearting the meeting. I want it to seem like, I want I think there needs to be a large percentage of the planning commission involved with it, because it needs to be seen as something that's adopted by the planning commission and not just something that we squeak by with quorum, and now we can have our new zoning. I mean, it wouldn't really read as very unified if we had 7 people here.
Yeah, so I think we'll try to capture everybody. I don't think we've done this through this process. In fact, I have belabored community engagement, honestly, to my disappointment of how many people actually get active. So it depends on how many are on that mailing list. That'll be a concern. If it's 1,000, then we might have to move it somewhere else. But I'm afraid of going through all this trouble and 6 people show up, and it's like, oh, that was a lot. So we have to gauge that, but we're going to try to capture, we'll see how many people are there. We're going to try to capture everybody that we can. I agree. I think Michelle has been around a while and has valuable experience. I'd hate to do it without her, so we're going to do our best. We've actually probably done great outreach and community engagement and probably went overboard than any city that I know, and we don't want to end the result and just kind of peter out to not much of anything. So we're going to do our best.
Yeah, no, and I will reiterate the point that we have belabored, and you've done a great job of making sure that we are engaging the community in the process of the zone ordinance, which is not typically done. And so we appreciate all the efforts to, because we know that we're making some bigger changes and want to make sure that the community is aware and engaged in the process, so I appreciate it.
And even like if people are, if their property switching from like R1 to R2, that could also be, even if they're not noticed, I mean, people can sometimes, misinformation can flow on certain forums. And it's, and I just don't want, I would be worried that it would be, well, I don't want to say I would be worried if it's a heavily attended meeting, that's great. But I also want to make sure that people get their due, and I don't want it to be just, they're talking to half a commission.
I agree. I appreciate that comment. Thank you.
To backtrack very slightly, for those of us that weren't there at the time, what is the P for context?
Parking.
Okay.
Just for parking.
All right.
So behind like Woodward, all those residential, like we're behind the car dealerships, and we've talked about how they have parking back there, and they've sometimes been converted, and there's some houses that are just, oh, so she's pulling up, so all that brown behind the Woodward pink.
Right, yeah,
So those are-
they're zoned as parking, but they're, yeah, okay.
Yeah. And so when that happened, when,
Okay, thank you.
Uni responded.
Are they going to be switching back?
We do not have a parking zone in the
They're going to
draft.
R, whatever the adjacent R zone district is, I believe.
I think we had discussed some
Thought
variability.
the one I saw might be the MXD, that there was a
Some areas it is.
question I
There was,
had.
Kyle's the
we
expert in the map.
had reviewed kind of each of them to what kind of made sense of, should it be more of development versus residential? So I think it's a mix, if I remember correctly.
And are you only going to be notifying the people whose parcels are changing, or people within 300 feet of the people whose
No,
parcels are changing?
I mean, it'll get to the point that we're sending out 9,000 letters, one to every home, so.
I know, and that's, well, that's why I'm, like, I mean, we sent out, we sent out a notice to everyone 300 feet away and to tell them that, that we're planning on swapping around an R1 to a mixed use today.
Sure. So per the code, we have to do that, though, when you're rezoning less than 10 properties. When you're rezoning 11 or more, it's legislative. So we don't have to do most, and I think most cities probably don't. So we're going to go big with it, but to each person will be different. So R2 to R1, well, I'm downsizing you, even though you're probably getting more rules. Let's notify them. Let's notify within 300 feet of every property. It's going to turn into the whole city. So we're going to go above and beyond for it.
I know, but what I'm saying is this, if you're, like, I'm expecting to have a huge meeting, because we had 4 to 10 people show up between this meeting and the last meeting to talk about one property, and we're talking about a multitude of properties that people, I'm going to lose my next door. I have this nice empty lot next door to me that's parking. Now all of a sudden there's going to be residential. I think we're going to get a lot of people.
I'm hoping they blow out my pizza budget, and I have to get babysitters there for people, and the auditorium is full, and we got you guys broken into groups, and it's a great community meeting, the best one I've ever had.
Yeah, so. I just don't want.
I've gotten very few
expectations
people at
to be
most
set
of
low
them.
for this. I want us to plan for it to be bigger. I get the feeling that it will be a bigger one.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Roger. Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is commission items. Anything, so I was only going to talk about the zoning ordinance. We haven't had any BZA meetings, have we? Anyone have anything further? All right. Well, with that, we can adjourn the meeting at 8:05. Thank you, everyone.
Organized.
Scaring me a little bit.
Sorry, are we off?